morning sun cast a warm glow on the sleek glass facade of Vision Motors, a luxury car dealership nestled in the heart of Los Angeles. Inside, the hum of activity filled the air, from the faint clicking of high heels on polished floors to the sound of employees chatting behind the reception desk rows of gleaming vehicles sat like masterpieces under bright showroom lights. Each one a testament to engineering and elegance. Among the staff was Ethan, the dealership sales manager Aman, who prided himself on his ability to size up a customer the moment they walked through the door. Dressed in an impeccably tailored suit and sporting an air of confidence, Ethan had spent years climbing the ranks, believing his sharp instincts and unwavering standards set him apart. As the glass doors slid open, Eamon entered quietly, his unassuming presence going largely unnoticed. Dressed in a worn leather jacket, faded jeans, and scuffed boots, he appeared out of place among the opulence. His face, partly hidden by a baseball cap, carried a serene but focused expression. To the casual observer, he might have been mistaken for someone stopping by to admire cars they couldn't possibly afford. Ethan glanced up from his desk and immediately zeroed in on the stranger. His trained eye darted from the man's jacket to his boots and finally to the beat-up sedan parked outside. Hardly the kind of Erev Ral that screamed high-end buyer. Ethan's lips curled into a faint practiced smile, but there was no warmth. Behind it, the man wandered deeper into the showroom, his hand brushing lightly against the hood of a silver sports car. He lingered there for a moment, admiring the vehicle's sleek design before turning to look around the room. Ethan took a sip of his coffee, leaned back in his chair, and muttered to a colleague, "We'll see how long he lasts before he realizes this isn't a used car lot." A few employees chuckled softly, their attention momentarily distracted from their tasks. Meanwhile, the man continued exploring the showroom room, his movements deliberate but relaxed. "Good morning, sir," Ethan said, finally stepping forward with his best sales manager tone, polite but distant welcome to Vision Motors. "Can I help you find something today?" The man looked up and met Ethan's gaze, his expression calm, just browsing. "Thanks, thought I'd take a look around." "Of course," Ethan replied, his smile tightening slightly. "Feel free to explore, but just so you know, most of our vehicles start in the 6 range. If you're interested, I'd be happy to recommend a few pre-owned options that might be more manageable." The man's eyes flickered, but his demeanor remained unchanged. "6 figures, huh?" he said, almost as if testing the words. "That's good to know. What's the story on this one?" He pointed to a ruby-red convertible in the center of the room. Ethan hesitated for a moment, his professional instincts wearing with his immediate judgment. "That's the new Altera 58 Roadster," he said, folding his arms, top of the line handcrafted interior and a starting price of $220,000. "We usually require financial pre-approval for serious inquiries." Theman nodded thoughtfully, running a finger along the edge of the car's polished hood. "Beautiful car," he murmured. "Certainly is," Ethan said, taking a subtle step closer to the car, almost as if guarding it. "But perhaps I can direct you to something more practical. We have a few SUVs that might be a better fit." The man straightened and looked Ethan directly in the eyes, his gaze steady but unreadable. "You don't think I could handle this one?" Ethan laughed lightly, his tone bordering on condescending. "It's not about handling, sir. I just like to save people time. A car like this tends to attract a particular kind of buyer." The man smiled faintly, but there was something sharp behind. "Interesting approach," he said. He paused, letting the moment stretch, then added, "How long have you worked here?" Caught off guard, Ethan blinked. "Going on 8 years," he said, adjusting his tie. "Why do you ask?" "No reason," the man replied, his tone as casual as if he were discussing the weather. "Just curious." The exchange caught the attention of a few other staff members who exchanged glances from across the showroom. Whispers began to circulate. Who was this guy? And why was he asking so many questions? The man stepped back from the car, his hands sliding into his jacket pockets. He glanced around the room, his eyes lingering on the other employees who were now trying to look busy. Then, almost to himself, he muttered, "I think I've seen enough, Ethan." frowned slightly, unsure what to make of the comment. "Well, if you have any other questions," he said, his tone tinged with impatience, "feel free to let me know. I'd be happy to assist within reason." The man tilted his head, studying Ethan for a moment. Then said, "You know, you're right, this place isn't what I expected." He turned and began walking toward the exit, his footsteps slow and deliberate. Ethan exhaled quietly, relieved to have dodged what he saw as a waste of time. But just before reaching the door, the man stopped and pulled out his phone. Without glancing back, he said, "Actually, I think I'll make a quick call before I go. Who's in charge here?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. His bubbling beneath his carefully controlled exterior, that would be Adam, or regional director. But he's not usually involved in day-to-day matters. "Good to know," the man said, dialing a number on his phone. He stepped outside, his voice low, but clear enough to catch the words, "Adam. It's me, mind swinging by Vision Motors. There's something I'd like to discuss inside the showroom." Ethan felt a sudden chill. The casual tone of the man's voice carried an unsettling weight, as if he knew exactly what he was doing around the room. The other employees fell silent, their curiosity piqued. Who was this guy? If you think you know what's about to happen, next comment. One below, trust me. It's worth sticking around to find out outside the showroom. Keanu Reeves stood under the bright morning sun, the phone pressed to his ear. His calm, measured tone betrayed none of the tension brewing inside. "Yeah, Adam. It's me," he said, glancing back at the sleek building. "No rush, but I'm at the dealership and I'd like you to come by. I've noticed a few things worth discussing on the other end." Adam, the regional director of Vision Motor, immediately caught the underlying seriousness in Keanu's voice. "I'll be there in 15 minutes, Adam replied without hesitation. Keanu ended the call, tucked his phone into the pocket of his worn leather jacket, and took a deep breath. He'd hoped this visit would confirm the dealership's reputation for excellence. Instead, it revealed cracks in the very culture he wanted to foster. He re-entered the showroom, and the moment he stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. Ethan was standing near the red convertible, his arms crossed, speaking in hushed tones with one of the junior staff members. Their conversation cut off abruptly when they saw Keanu approach. Ethan straightened, plastering on his polite but insincere smile. "Back so soon?" he asked, his tone dripping with faint condescension. "Did you forget something?" Keanu gave a small, almost imperceptible smile and replied, "No, I think I just needed a second look." He wandered deeper into the showroom, seemingly unbothered by the tension that was now palpable. Several employees exchanged uneasy glances. One of them, a young salesperson named Taylor, whispered, "Who is this guy? He doesn't look like your typical customer, but he's way too calm." Keanu took his time, carefully observing the staff. He noted how they interacted with other customers, effortlessly charming with those who exuded wealth and status, but distant and dismissive toward anyone who didn't fit the mold. As he stood near a gleaming black SUV, a middle-aged couple walked in, dressed in casual attire. The woman's eyes lit up as she pointed to one of the vehicles, but her excitement quickly faded when Ethan approached them with the same disinterested tone he had used on Keanu. "Welcome," Ethan said, his smile strained. "Is there something specific you're looking for today?" The couple exchanged a brief glance, sensing the lack of genuine interest. "We're just browsing," the man replied, his voice tinged with hesitation. "Well, feel free to look around." Ethan said, his tone neutral but dismissive. He turned away almost immediately, leaving the couple to fend for themselves. Keanu's jaw tightened, but his expression remained calm. He stepped forward and addressed the couple with a warm smile. "The models over there are fantastic for families," he said, pointing to a row of SUVs, plenty of room, great safety features, and surprisingly good mileage. The couple blinked in surprise at the sudden kindness. "Oh, thank you," the woman said, her tone softening. "We'll take a look." As they moved toward the SUVs, Keanu glanced back at Ethan, whose expression had turned sour. "Sir," Ethan said, walking toward him, his voice low, "I'd appreciate it if you let the staff handle the customers. That's what we're here for." Keanu raised an eyebrow, his demeanor still composed. "Of course," he replied. "Just seemed like they could use a little guidance." Ethan's irritation was now barely masked. "We have a process here," he said curtly. If every customer tried to play the expert, things would get chaotic. Before Keanu could respond, the sound of the glass doors sliding open drew everyone's attention. Adam Stroh, in his tailored suit and confident gait, exuding authority. His eyes scanned the room until they landed on Keanu, and his face broke into a genuine smile. "Keanu," Adam called out, his voice carrying across the showroom. The staff froze, their whispers silenced as the realization began to dawn. Ethan's face went pale, his confident posture faltering. Adam walked straight to Keanu and extended his hand, shaking it firmly. "I didn't expect you to drop by," he said warmly. "Thought I'd take a look around." Keanu replied, his voice steady. "Wanted to see how things were running when no one knew who I was." Adam's smile failed slightly and he nodded. Understanding the weight of those words, he turned to address the room. "For those who don't already know, this is Keanu Reeves, our new primary investor and owner of Vision Motors." A stunned silence fell over the showroom. Employees who had been watching from the sidelines now shifted uncomfortably. Their earlier judgments suddenly exposed. Ethan's mouth opened as if to speak, but no words came out. Their realization hit him like a freight train. Keanu turned to Ethan, his expression calm but piercing. "You've been here 8 years, right?" he asked, echoing Ethan's earlier boast. "Yes." Ethan managed to stammer, his face reddening. "Then I'm sure you understand how important first impressions are," Keanu said, his voice steady but firm. "Not just for customers who look like they can afford something, but for everyone who walks through that door." Ethan lowered his gaze, his earlier confidence replaced by unease. Adam cleared his throat. Breaking the tension, Keanu would take this to the conference room. Keanu nodded, his eyes sweeping over the staff one last time. "Yes," he said, "but I want everyone there. This isn't just about one person. It's about the culture we're building here." Adam immediately began organizing the staff while Ethan stood rooted to the spot, his mind racing as the employees shuffled toward the conference room. Keanu lingered for a moment, watching the middle-aged couple who were now excitedly examining one of the SUVs. He smiled faintly to himself. This wasn't just about cars, it was about people with that thought. He turned and followed the staff, ready to deliver a message that would redefine Vision Motors. The conference room at Vision Motors was a sleek, modern space with a long glass table surrounded by high-backed leather chairs. The walls were lined with framed photos of the dealership's most luxurious models and awards for excellence. Yet despite its polished ambiance, the room felt stiflingly tense as the employees settled into their seats. Ethan, now visibly uncomfortable, chose a spot near the corner. Avoiding eye contact with anyone, Keanu entered last. His steps, deliberate but unhurried, his worn leather jacket and scuffed boots stood out sharply against the glossy professionalism of the room. He walked to the head of the table, his calm gaze sweeping over the staff before he placed his hands lightly on the edge of the table. "I appreciate all of you taking the time to meet on short notice," he began, his voice measured and steady. "I didn't plan on making an entrance like this, but sometimes the unexpected gives us the clearest picture of what's really going on." The employees exchanged nervous glances, the weight of his words settling heavily in the air. Ethan shifted in his seat, fidgeting with the cuff of his shirt. Keanu continued, his tone firm, but not unkind. "Vision Motors is more than a business. It's a place where people come to invest in their dreams. A car that represents who they are, where they've been, and where they're going. And that dream should never feel out of reach because of how someone looks or dresses when they walk through those doors." His words struck a chord and a few employees nodded faintly. Keanu turned his attention directly to Ethan, his gaze unwavering. "Ethan," he said, his tone soft but penetrating, "you've been here a long time, you know this business inside and out. But today I saw something that concerns me." Ethan's face flushed and he swallowed hard. "Mr. Reeves," he began, his voice faltering, "if I've done anything toughened you, I assure you it wasn't intentional." Keanu raised a hand, cutting him off gently but firmly. "This isn't about me being offended," he said. "It's about the culture of this place. I watched you judge a customer today. Not just me, but others. You assumed their worth based on their appearance. That's not just a disservice to them, it's a disservice to Vision. The room fell into a heavy silence, broken only by the faint hum of the air conditioning. Ethan's shoulders slumped slightly and he nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're right." He admitted, "I made assumptions I shouldn't have." Keanu acknowledged the admission with a small nod, recognizing that as the first Steve said. Then he addressed the entire room. "But this isn't just about one person, it's about all of us. How we treat people defines who we are as a team. It's not enough to sell the most expensive cars, we need to create an experience where everyone, no matter who they are, feels respected and valued." He paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. "This isn't just good business. It's the right thing to do if we want to be the best we have to be better. And that starts now." A young salesperson, Taylor, hesitantly raised her hand. Keanu gestured for her. "To speak, Mr. Reeves," she said nervously. "I think most of us try to treat customers fairly, but sometimes we let appearances guide us without even realizing it. I've done it too." Keanu's expression softened and he nodded. "Thank you for your honesty, Taylor. Bias isn't always intentional, but it's our responsibility to recognize it and rise above it. That's what I expect from all of you, not perfection but effort." He turned to Adam, the regional director, who'd been quietly observing from the side. "Adam, I'd like to implement a customer service training program." Immediately, Keanu said, "One that focuses not just on selling, but on treating every customer with respect and professionalism." "I'll participate too, because this is something we all need to work on." Adam nodded firmly, jotting down notes. "Consider it done," he said. Keanu's gaze returned to Ethan. "Ethan," he said, his voice steady, "I know you can do better. You've been a part of this team for a long time, and I believe you want what's best for this place, but change starts with accountability. I hope you'll use this as an opportunity to grow, not just for yourself, but for the entire team." Ethan looked up, his eyes reflecting a mix of regret and determination. "I will," he said, his voice firmer. "Now I won't let this happen again." Keanu nodded, satisfied. "Good," he said. "Now, let's focus on moving forward together." The tension in the room began to ease, replaced by a sense of resolve. As the employees filed out, many of them cast thoughtful glances at Keanu, their expressions a mixture of respect and introspection. Ethan lingered behind, his face still red with embarrassment. He approached Keanu hesitantly. "Mr. Reeves," he began, "I just want to say thank you for giving me a chance to make this right." Keanu gave him a small but genuine smile. "Everyone deserves a second chance, Ethan," he said. "What matters is what you do with it." As Ethan walked away, Keanu stood for a moment in the now empty conference room, his mind already turning to the work ahead. This was just the beginning. Transforming the culture at Vision Motors would take time, but he knew it was possible with the right leadership and a shared commitment to excellence. With a quiet determination, Keanu left the room, ready to lead by example. Keanu stepped out of the conference room. The tension from the meeting still lingering in the air outside. Employees had returned to their stations, though the atmosphere was noticeably quieter. Ethan stood near the reception desk, his usually confident demeanor subdued. Meanwhile, Adam, the regional director, walked alongside Keanu as they headed toward the showroom floor. "Do you think the team understands the gravity of this?" Adam asked quietly. Keanu glanced around the showroom, his sharp eyes catching every detail, employees murmuring amongst themselves, occasional curious glances directed his way, and customers browsing through rows of luxury vehicles. He stopped in front of a gleaming silver sports car, its polished surface reflecting his calm but resolute expression. "They'll understand soon enough," Keanu said, his voice steady. "Change doesn't happen in one conversation, but today was a start." Just then, a commotion at the entrance drew their attention. A man dressed in a tailored navy suit walked briskly through the glass doors, his expression serious but tinged with urgency. It was Richard, a senior executive from the company's headquarters, summoned by Adam after Keanu's initial phone call. "Keanu," Richard said, his voice warm despite the tension. In the room, he extended a hand and Keanu shook it firmly. "I heard you were here. I take it you've seen enough." Keanu nodded slightly, his gaze flickering to Ethan, who was watching the interaction from a distance, his face pale. "I've seen enough to know we have work to do," Keanu replied, his tone calm but carrying undeniable weight. Richard's eyes swept across the room, noting the nervous energy among the staff. "Do you want to address them again?" he asked. Keanu shook his head. "Not yet. First, I want to talk to the customers." He set his gaze settling on a middle-aged woman browsing the SUVs. She was dressed casually in a simple blouse and jeans, her manner hesitant, as if unsure whether she belonged in such a high-end space. Without hesitation, Keanu approached her, his movements deliberate but unassuming. "Hi there," he said, his voice warm and approachable. "Looking for something specific today?" The woman turned, startled by the friendly tone. "Oh, just browsing," she said, glancing nervously at the gleaming vehicles around her. "These cars are probably way out of my budget, though." Keanu smiled gently. "You might be surprised," he said. "We have options for all kinds of drivers. What kind of car are you looking for?" The woman hesitated, then relaxed lightly. Under his kind demeanor, something reliable, but with a little style, she said, her voice gaining confidence. Keanu nodded thoughtfully. "Let me show you a few models," he said, gesturing toward a nearby SUV as Keanu engaged with the customer. Ethan watched from across the showroom, a knot tightening in his stomach. The sight of Keanu effortlessly connecting with the woman made him realize just how much he had missed the mark earlier. Adam approached Ethan quietly. "You're lucky," he said, his tone neutral but pointed. "Keanu could have walked in here, fired half the staff, and walked out instead. He's giving you a chance to prove yourself. Don't waste it." Ethan nodded slowly, swallowing the lump in his throat. Meanwhile, the interaction between Keanu and the customer had drawn the attention of other employees. They watched as he patiently explained the features. The SUV answered her questions and even cracked a joke that made her laugh. When the woman left a few minutes later, she turned to Keanu with a grateful smile. "Thank you for taking the time," she said. "You've been so kind. I'll think about it and come back soon. I'll be here," Keanu said with a smile, watching her leave. He turned back to the room, his eyes sweeping over the staff. That, he said, his voice carrying enough weight to command attention, is how every customer should feel when they leave this place. The staff stood frozen, the unspoken message sinking in. Keanu's gaze settled on Ethan, who stiffened under the scrutiny. "Ethan," Keanu said, his tone steady but sharp. "You've been here long enough to know better. Today wasn't your best moment, but I believe you can do better. The question is, do you?" Ethan hesitated, his mind racing. Then finally, he stepped forward, his voice quiet but firm. "I can and I will." Keanu studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Good," he said. "Because this isn't just about you. It's about everyone here. We're not just selling cars. We're creating an experience that starts with respect, no matter who walks through those doors." The room fell silent as Keanu's words echoed. Even the customers browsing the showroom seemed to sense the gravity of the moment. Richard stepped forward, authoritative presence adding to the weight of the conversation. Effective immediately, he said, addressing the staff, "We'll be implementing Keanu's customer service training program. Everyone, myself included, will participate. This isn't optional." Keanu nodded in agreement. "This is about more than just business," he said. "It's about who we are and what we stand for. If you're not willing to commit to that, then this may not be the place for you." His words hung in the air, challenging and inspiring all at once. As the staff slowly began to return to their duties, the atmosphere in the showroom shifted. There was still tension, but now it carried an undercurrent of determination, a sense that things could and would improve. Ethan lingered near the reception desk, his expression thoughtful. He knew he had a long way to go, but for the first time in years, he felt a genuine desire to be better, not just for himself, but for the team and the customers. He had failed to value. Keanu watched him for a moment, then turned to Richard. "We're on the right track," he said quietly. Richard nodded. "You've got their attention now. We make sure they keep it." Keanu smiled faintly. "One step at a time," he said, already thinking about the next phase of transformation for Vision Motors. The following week, Vision Motors hummed with a different energy. The employees carried themselves with a heightened sense of purpose, their interactions more intentional. Their demeanor more welcoming. Keanu Reeves had made his point clear, and it was starting to show. Ethan stood near the reception desk, dressed as sharply as ever, but with an air of humility that hadn't been there before. He greeted customers warmly, making an effort to engage with them. Beyond the surface, Keanu arrived that morning in his usual understated style, parking the same beat-up sedan in the back lot. From outside the showroom, he observed the scene. Through the glass walls, a middle-aged man in a wrinkled jacket and sneakers was speaking with one of the younger employees, Taylor. Her posture was open, and her smile genuine as she guided the man toward a row of sedans nearby. Ethan was assisting a young couple with a toddler. The couple was dressed casually, and their worn stroller had a squeaky wheel, but Ethan paid no mind. Instead, he crouched down to talk to their child, who giggled as Ethan handed him a small Vision Motors keychain. Keanu's lips curved into a faint smile. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. As he stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted slightly. But this time, it wasn't the awkward tension of a week ago. Employees greeted him with nods and smiles, their interactions marked by respect rather than nervousness. Taylor approached him with an eager expression. "Mr. Reeves," she said, "I just sold a car to that gentleman over there." He said it was the first time he'd ever felt so comfortable in a dealership. Keanu's smile widened. "Great job, Taylor," he said. "That's exactly what we're aiming for." Taylor beamed and returned to her station, leaving Keanu to wander the showroom. He stopped near the SUVs where Ethan was now wrapping up with the young couple. Ethan stood and turned to Keanu, his expression a mix of pride and humility. "Morning, Mr. Reeves," he said. "Didn't expect to see you today. Just checking in." Keanu replied, his tone light but purposeful. "Looks like things are running smoothly." Ethan nodded. "I've been working on it," he said. "Last week was a wake-up call. I know I have a long way to go, but I'm trying to be better." Keanu's gaze was steady but kind. "That's all I can ask," he said. "It's not about being perfect. It's about making an effort every single day." Ethan hesitated, then added, "I also wanted to thank you for giving me a second chance. You could have replaced me, but instead, you let me prove myself. That means a lot." Keanu nodded, his expression softening. "Everyone deserves a chance to grow," he said. "What matters is how you use." The two men stood in silence for a moment before Keanu gestured toward the reception desk. "Let's gather everyone. I want to share something with the team." A few minutes later, the employees of Vision Motors assembled in the conference room once more. Though this time the atmosphere was different. There was no tension, only a sense of anticipation. Keanu stood at the head of the table, his hands resting lightly on the glass surface. His calm, steady presence commanded attention, and every eye in the room was fixed on him. "I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the progress I've seen over the past week," Keanu began. "It's not easy to change, but I can see the effort you're all making, and it's paying off." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room, and a few employees exchanged proud glances. "But this is just the beginning," Keanu continued. "Culture isn't something you fix once and forget about. It's something you build every day with every decision you make and every interaction you have." He paused, letting his words sink in before adding, "What we're building here is bigger than selling cars. We're creating a place where people feel seen, valued, and respected. Whether they're buying a $200 Eurizio Zero sports car or just stopping by to ask a question, that's what makes us different. That's what makes us better." The room was silent, every employee hanging on his words. Keanu's gaze shifted to Ethan, who met it with a nod of understanding. "I know some of you may feel like this is a lot to take in," Keanu said. "But remember, progress isn't about perfection. It's about trying, learning, and doing better every day." He stepped back, his tone growing more personal. "When I invested in Vision Motors, I didn't just see a business. I saw an opportunity to create something meaningful. And that starts with all of you together. We can make this a place we're proud of, a place where customers leave with more than just a car. They leave with trust and respect." The employees broke into quiet applause, the sound building as Keanu's words resonated with them. Even Ethan joined in, his applause heartfelt and genuine. As the team began to disperse, Keanu lingered for a moment, watching them with a sense of quiet pride. He had no illusions about the work ahead, but for the first time he felt confident that they were moving in the right direction. Vision Motors wasn't just about luxury vehicles anymore. It was becoming a symbol of respect, integrity, and the power of second chance. A month after Keanu Reeves' transformative visit to Vision Motors, the dealership was thriving in more ways than one. Customers from all walks of life filled the showroom, daily drawn not just by the allure of luxury cars, but by the reputation of exceptional service and genuine respect. Keanu arrived early that morning, parking his trusty old sedan in the back lot. As usual, he preferred to blend in quietly, observing the changes that had taken root in the team and their approach. The energy inside was unmistakably different, livelier, more inclusive, and far more welcoming from his vantage point near the showroom entrance. Keanu watched as Ethan greeted a young man in a hoodie and sneakers. The man, visibly nervous, hesitated near the door before Ethan approached him with a warm smile. "Good morning, welcome to Vision Motors," Ethan said, extending a hand. "What brings you in today?" The young man shifted his weight awkwardly. I'm just looking," he said, glancing around probably. "Can't afford anything here, but I thought I'd check it out." Ethan shook his head lightly and gestured toward a nearby sedan. "Hey, no pressure," he said. "We've got options for everyone. Let me know if you see something you like. I'll be happy to help." The young man's shoulders relaxed as Ethan led him toward the sedans, chatting about fuel efficiency and safety features. Keanu smiled faintly. The Ethan he had met a month ago would have dismissed that customer without a second thought. Now he was not just selling cars, she was building trust. Keanu's attention shifted to Taylor, who was assisting an older woman examining an SUV. Taylor's patient and enthusiastic explanations brought a genuine smile to the woman's face across the room. Adam spoke with the family about financing options, his tone approachable and sincere. The team wasn't just working, they were connecting. Keanu wandered deeper into the showroom, nodding at employees who greeted him with newfound confidence. He stopped at the customer lounge where a woman in a business suit sat sipping coffee while her paperwork was finalized. She glanced up and smiled at him. "This place is amazing," she said. "Everyone's been so kind and professional. I've been to other dealerships, but this is different." Keanu nodded. "That's what we're aiming for," he said as he moved back toward the showroom floor. Richard approached him with a clipboard in hand. "Morning, Keanu," Richard said, his voice cheerful. "Thought you'd like to see this." He handed Keanu a report showing a noticeable increase in sales and positive customer reviews. More importantly, it highlighted the dramatic improvement in customer satisfaction scores. Keanu scanned the report, nodding thoughtfully. "This is great," he said, "but it's not just the numbers that matter, it's the people behind them." Richard smiled. "The team's come along. They're really starting to take ownership of the culture. We're building." Keanu's gaze drifted back to Ethan, who was now shaking hands with the young man in the hoodie. The customer's face lit up as Ethan handed him a business card and pointed toward the financing office. "I can see that," Keanu said, his voice filled with quiet pride. As the morning passed, Keanu called for an impromptu team meeting in the same conference room where he had delivered his powerful speech a month earlier. The employees gathered quickly, their energy no longer nervous but enthusiastic. Keanu stood at the head of the table, his calm presence commanding attention. "As always, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge what you've all accomplished." He began, his tone warm but resolute. "A month ago, I stood here and challenged you to do better, not just as employees but as people, and you've risen to that challenge." He paused, his gaze sweeping across the room. "The progress you've made isn't just about selling more cars. It's about creating a place where every customer feels valued and respected. That's the kind of culture that makes Vision Motors stand out. That's what makes us a team." The room was silent, the weight of his words settling over them. Keanu's tone softened, and a faint smile played on his lips. "I've seen you connect with customers, support each other, and take pride in what you do. And that's just the beginning. Together, we're building something bigger than a dealership. We're building a legacy." A ripple of applause spread through the room, growing louder. With each moment, Ethan clapped the hardest, his expression reflecting both gratitude and determination as the applause subsided. Keanu took a step back, placing his hands lightly on the table, moving. Forward, let's keep this momentum. Let's keep learning, growing, and treating every person who walks through those doors like they matter. Because they do. The meeting concluded and the team returned to their work with renewed energy later that afternoon. As Keanu prepared to leave, Ethan approached him near the entrance. Mr. Reeves, Ethan said, his voice steady but earnest. I wanted to thank you again for believing in me and all of us. I won't forget it. Keanu placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder, his expression thoughtful. You've earned it, he said simply. Keep proving it. Ethan nodded, his confidence bolstered by the exchange. As Keanu walked out to his sedan, he glanced back at the showroom one last time. The glass walls reflected the sunlight, casting a warm glow over the building. Inside, the team worked with focus and purpose, their interactions genuine and uplifting. Vision Motors wasn't just a dealership anymore. It was a symbol of respect, growth, and the power of second chances. Keanu slid into the driver's seat, started the engine, and drove away, confident that the team he'd inspired would continue to thrive. The road ahead was bright, not just for Vision Mott, but for everyone who walked through its doors.